on the whole process again. And the other one is, redevelopment seems to have a lot of money to put into a ballpark. And don't get me wrong, I'm a supporter of the A's and I hope they come to Silver Lake. But redevelopment seems to have a lot of money to put into downtown and to put into a ballpark, but for the neighborhoods, they have zero.
Let me say this in a way that completely is respectful of what you're saying. Those are really good questions. Those are really good questions. And I don't think the answer to them has been written yet. Because there is no guarantee, unless there is an organization that is put together that guarantees it, that the neighbors are going to be made whole. And at this point, the budget is very much, ballpark is the largest item that's in the budget. You can look at it, you can see it. Second largest item is the downtown urban San Pedro piece, right? So jobs and economic development, ballpark, have been the focus of this budget. And part of the reason you've got that tension is that neighborhoods aren't an independent funding source. So I think you raised two really good points, Carlos, and I think part of what I am advocating, I guess I'm advocating here, is that we will perpetually be having this problem on a downturn unless we create a systemic, fiscally sound way to get ourselves out of that competition. Because it's one that it's not good enough that we just invest in neighborhoods in flush times and abandon them in the rough times, because that's exactly when they need the help. And this is, I'm a bit of a partisan on this. So my fear is that if we are always in competition with economic development or ballpark, then we're going to be on the short end of the stick. And that's me speaking as for myself, not necessarily the agency hat on.
So basically what you're saying is that we should rally to get on the ballot, to pass the ballot in November to prevent that money to be taken, because I don't see any other way that we as a community can prevent that money to go elsewhere. Because if we do it, at least we will have the prevalence to take ownership of that money, you know, if it's for schools or whatever, but the community money, we can prevent that money to go to other projects and stay in the neighborhoods.
What I would say is, premise of strong neighborhoods is people ought to be involved in decisions that affect their lives. And you as leaders need to decide how you want to be involved in these decisions. And I see a couple of critical decisions coming before you. The budget is the most immediate one, and then the future of how it's going to be financed is the longer term one. And you all need to decide how, as my father the Marine said, are you going to lead? Are you going to follow? Or are you going to get out of the way?
Charles?
So, you said initially that you don't see another way of getting funding. So brainstorming, I mean, where does the money come from, right? We either get it from the city or we tax ourselves, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot to brainstorm there, right? So I think what we need to do, unlike what Jaime says, I think we need to put KIP and ensure that KIP, before 2 years are up and there's no money at all, and he's now gone, that he needs to get this tax thing finished before he leaves, and he needs to make it happen. That's what we need to do.
I tend to agree with that, I must say.
I would say that's the bottom line of the whole thing.
Again, another devil's advocate. This is, you know, watch this budget process, multiple cycles. And the council, the council is the city council, and then, you know, an hour later it sits as the redevelopment board. They have access to both budgets. And they often, like when they are short in the general fund, they look for projects that would normally come out of general fund that somehow can come out of redevelopment funds that are capital type projects, and they backfill, what they call backfill, the general fund with redevelopment funds. So where is the politics in this when they're already using general redevelopment funds to backfill general fund? If we take the strong neighborhoods and start doing tax increment, which essentially is, you're saying, is going to take money out of general fund, How are we gonna politically sell this?
I think you're gonna need to shift the way that we've done project funding in two ways to respond to that issue. And I think it'll modify not the top 10 lists themselves, but what we invest in within the top 10 lists. And I'll go back a bit. I think there are two types of things that will work for the city, putting the city hat on, right, as opposed to the agency hat, in terms of redevelopment investments. And they are investments that either don't have an operations and maintenance impact, or actually reduce their operations and maintenance costs. So technology is not quite there, but I'll pick one where the technology is almost there. If we install truly energy efficient lighting in all of our street lamps, that can be then dimmed progressively late at night, huge cut in their operations and maintenance. Big capital investment, huge cut. They'd be happy with that. That works. That works for the neighborhoods if you get brighter, wider light in your neighborhood, right? So investments like that, like the streetscapes, like the work in Plaza Arroyo, all of those things which increase property values, which cause maintenance not to have to do so much preventative maintenance, those are all things that can work in the favor of the general fund and work in the neighborhoods. So that's one category of investments that would be possible and satisfy both of those interests. The other category is, if you look out over the next 20 years, most of the major infill development in San Jose is going to take place in strong neighborhoods. And it can take place well, or it can take place poorly. I think that if we create a strong neighborhoods team that takes the idea that great development is premised on integrating with the neighborhoods that are around it, not just plopping stuff down in, we can do significant infill development at higher densities that increases the value of the property in the tax increment area and increases the value of the surrounding homes. The city, as a city, will like that because that will increase general funds. The boat will rise and general fund monies will increase. But that's got to be done in a way that is not forcing stuff down the neighbor's hats. It's got to be done in a way that's truly collaborative, like the work we've done in Japantown, like the work we've done around San Jose Medical Center. And takes a higher degree of time and intensity than the city normally puts into this stuff. So I think that it's a great devil's advocate question, and one that I've literally woken up in the middle of the night thinking about, is that in order for this to work for the city, you're going to see more investments in those two categories. Those kinds of things that are, if you will, general fund friendly, and those kinds of things that grow the general fund. That might mean that the amount of money left for such things as a new community center that's going to be generally fund operated are either very, very small or have restrictions on them that say things like, we won't build this until you figure out a way to operate it that doesn't drain the general fund. And I think we'd have to put that in place in some pretty solid way for the city to be happy with. Tendra?
Yeah, should we perhaps put together another committee to work on this particular aspect? It sounds like this is something that we need to put some thought into and do some planning and put our own house in order to be able to support it.
Well, I mean, to point back to Charles, I think he's framed it out in a way that I would agree with. I feel like to personalize it to us, we have 2 years on this bridge. We're going to do great work in the neighborhoods in these 2 years, and I'm going to make sure that happens. But if we don't build that bridge in that 2 years, so yeah, we'd love all the support that we can get, but it's also good leadership is also going to have to come from.
Can I just see a show of hands around the table who thinks that's a good idea? Make another working group for this.
I want to say one thing to that. I think the remove barriers to neighborhood action is actually the committee just expanded a bit. Don't create another committee. Keep us ready in this committee. Expand it.
That's a good idea.
To include that, so we don't create another one.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
I second that motion.
Okay.
I think that perhaps regular updates on how it's going would be appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, this question.
It's not really a question, but it's sort of like an add-on to this. What I think the reality that everybody in this room understands, that no one has said, is that in the San Jose, there's only one thing that's important, and that's the power of 6. And that means that we have to consistently, that we have to start working to find 6. That's the magic number, 6 city council members. Hopefully, In most cases, that includes the sitting mayor, and if it doesn't, it can be done without them, or her down the road. But the power of 6 is the only way, and to build those, again, build those relationships with those council members, not only as for your own neighborhood issues, but for this larger SNI issue, so that whatever, and that was one of the key parts that what you started off with that bothered me the most is we can all decide that interim taxes or the change in taxes, notwithstanding Campbell Union School District, is perhaps the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if we don't got 6, we don't got it. So that's where we've got to put, and I'm not playing politics, but we've got to put our neighborhood hats together with our political hats to make sure, because there's 2 things that sell at City Hall. Money, which we don't have, and power of people, which we do have. And that's got to happen. So again, where other committee does it, that's almost minuscule. It really has to start concentrating on that power of 6. And we're going to have 3 new ones, or 3 or 4 new ones come December 1. So that's a whole new group that we need to start off by educating, because you can bet on the 18th floor they'll be educating those new ones exactly the way they want it to be done.
You are so right, and that was one of the reasons that we wanted to put this group together, is we wanted to have political power for the neighborhoods.
Question.
That's so well said.
Would it behoove us to invite those candidates here to speak? And obviously it's short notice, and only the next meeting would be October.
Actually, our next meeting is December for the board. The committees meet.
No, you know what, here's my suggestion on that is the campaigns are got 7 weeks left. If you haven't found somebody that you want, start to find somebody you want in your area and get that relationship going, because now's the time they need you the most.
Mine's uncontested, so it's not a problem.
Well,
Is it a labor, a non-labor issue at all?
it's not labor.
I know it's not labor, but usually that's what it comes down to.
Well, you know what? If we want labor versus non-labor to decide the politics in this city, then we're going to be doomed forever.
Okay.
We've got to get out of that. We've got to get out of that paradigm. We've got to start creating our own paradigm. And I've talked to both sides. I mean, one side is at the moment hates me, and the other side hates me even more. So.
Just one aside here, Mike. Your wife Monica has been working with Carrasco, I believe. With,
Yes.
Yes, and I understand that Sam Ricardo, who is very supportive of SNI, is supporting, in fact, having a fundraiser for her tonight. My husband's there. So if any of you are in the area, her name is Madeline Carrasco.
Magdalena Carrasco.
Magdalena Carrasco.
Yeah. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, I believe it goes by
Right behind St. Joseph's.
Yeah, I think it was the 538 so.
Thank you very much. I have to go pick up the little ones.
Thank you so much, Kip.
Thank you, Kip. Good night.
Well, since we lost our main question, she first said
Let me make one announcement.
Two announcements, go ahead, Phil.
If any of you are in District 3, the Neighborhood Advisory Group has been having neighborhood tours this Saturday. There's a tour of Delmar Park, and I have instructions for that. So if you're interested this Saturday in meeting the group that's been touring the neighborhoods, right here.
And Steve, you want to make a little announcement on what you're thinking?
Yeah, I've never done anything, and I'm 61 years old. I ran political campaigns for 17 years. I ran school bonds, school parcel taxes. I've never done anything against schools. The San Jose Evergreen College District is in a state of financial disaster. They are cooking